Joining me now is the author of groundbreaking works, international bestsellers, including The Strange Death of Europe, The Madness of Crowds, The War on the West, and his latest on democracies and death cults. Douglas Murray, let's start with Coldplay and the manner in which lead singer Chris Martin humiliated a couple of fans because they were Israeli. Look at this awkward interaction.
Where did you come from today? From Israel. Okay, well. Okay, well, listen. I'm going to say this. I'm very grateful that you're here as humans, and I'm treating you as equal humans on earth, regardless of where you come from or don't come from. Thank you for being here. We're grateful, and thank you for being loving and kind. And although it's controversial, maybe, I also want to welcome people in the audience from Palestine, because we have a belief that we're all equally human.
There you go, Douglas. So loving and kind. He said, those two young girls, we are treating you as equal humans on earth, regardless of where you come from. Douglas?
You know, Rita, I've said to you before that on much of this stuff today, you've got to play it any other way around. Imagine if Chris Martin from Coldplay, who's a very talented entertainer, and he can do these stadium shows with incredible skill and everything. But imagine that two young black people had got up on stage and Chris Martin had said, I'd just like to say that I am going to treat you as fellow humans. I think there would be outrage because in 2025, who wouldn't treat two black people with equality and regard them as equal humans? But yet it comes to Israelis and, in fact, to Jews. And there has been such a campaign of defamation and slander and libel, so much mainstreaming of perhaps the world's oldest racial bigotry, that even a sort of so-called progressive, decent guy like Chris Martin can say something so ham-fisted and inappropriate to that. He will be congratulated by people for being so decent. But as I say, try that with any other group of people and you would not be applauded for it. Very much something else.
Well, he was reacting to the crowd as soon as those young girls, and they seem to be very young and obviously nervous being on stage, as soon as they mentioned they were from Israel, you could hear the crowd. It wasn't loud booing, but there was certainly a reaction. And it seemed like Chris Martin felt the need to step in and appease the crowd. I just don't understand why he did that, because, and then to mention any Palestinians. I mean, would you do that with any other conflict where if, there's someone in the crowd from a certain country, you make the point of mentioning the country that they're in conflict with as well?
Absolutely.
It was ham-fisted.
Absolutely. And again, I mean, find me the crowd of pop concert goers who would boo people from any other country. I mean, if somebody said, where are you from? I'm from Nigeria, and part of the crowd booed, you'd just be like, what is wrong with these people? If two people got up on stage and were Ukrainian or Russian, and part of the crowd booed just because of the country they were from, this is, I'm afraid, just an example of the normalization of this bigotry and the incredible penetration of complete untruths into the mainstream of our societies.
Staying in the UK, and the Greens believe with their dynamic leadership team they can beat Labor. Zach Polanski has promised to make the party even more radical. This character, Douglas, thinks even women's shelters should not be safe from men identifying as women.
Does someone with a penis have a right of entry to a woman's refuge?
Does someone with a penis have a right to entry to a woman's refuge?
However they identify.
Yes, if they identify as a trans person.
Yes, he thinks men identifying as women should enter women's shelters as long as they think they're women. And elected as co-deputy leader of the Greens is this character who called October 7 a fight back by Hamas.
They're going to use the pretext of the fight back by Hamas fighters, or supposedly Hamas fighters, this morning. Now, remember the situation in Palestine, and especially the situation in Gaza. It's an open-air prison. It's the biggest concentration camp the world has ever seen.
Douglas, there you have it. That's the modern-day Greens for you. They don't know what a woman is. They think October 7 was a fight back.
Yeah, they seem to be very confused, but they are the absolute epitome of some of the strange contradictions on the radical left in our time. That Polanski guy has said that it's going to be a priority for him and his party to fight for LGBTQIA plus rights, and of course they'll do that. What that really means is we're going to force feed male rapists into female prisons and female safe spaces like refuges, and that's progress. I mean, that has nothing to do with gay rights or anything else. It's just a preposterous pushing of a gender ideology question, which they're not smart enough to have worked out the answers to at the moment. But yes, and they at the moment will live happily in coalition with somebody like that backward lunatic deputy leader who wants to talk about the so-called assaults by so-called Hamas, so-called fighters, and much more. These people are doing this for sometimes, in the case of Polanski, obviously just stupidity reasons. And in the case of that backward Sharia-loving seeming guy, just because, you know, he's obviously on the other side from civilization when it comes to whether or not people should go and rape and massacre young people at a dance party. But the interesting thing about them is that they choose these incredible, weird sectionalist interests, and they're trying to run to govern a country, Great Britain, which has a stagnant economy, a fleeing young class, welfare debt repayments it simply cannot pay, a pensions crisis, an employment crisis, a cost of living crisis, a housing ladder and house building crisis, and much more. And what do these people want to talk about but palling up to Hamas terrorists and praising penis-having men going into women's shelters? Well, they've really got their finger on the pulse there, haven't they? They're really going to solve Britain's crucial problems were they to get to power. Fortunately, they've got no more chance of getting to power than the Green Party ever has to date.
I mean, I wonder if they've even asked one of the deputy leaders there his attitude to the LGBT community and whether being homosexual, for example, is acceptable, because there's also a great deal of conflict between these individuals and their...
And may that conflict have its final meeting place at some point soon. I really hope those two sides hash out their contradictions together, and the female penis holders can go and meet the Gaza lover, Hamas lovers, and have it out once and for all.
But yes, I think I know how that's going to end. Now, we've just had a very controversial March for Australia rallies around the country just this past weekend. The media were quick to demonise these protests before they even began. In the UK, you've had a similar movement that's been growing. There's a flag movement. Thousands of Union Jacks and St George flags have gone up around the country. And you wrote about this phenomenon for The Spectator. Tell me what it all means and why it matters in the UK.
Well, you know, it's really interesting, this, Rita. I was just writing about this morning as it happens. And I said, you know, there were major marches where tens of thousands of people came out flying their national flag in multiple cities and were promptly demonized by their own government, branded as racists by newspapers, and called neo-Nazis by the media. And it happens that this weekend it was Australia that happened in, with the protests in Sydney, Melbourne, and elsewhere. But that could just as easily have been written or said at any point in recent weeks about people in Britain, about people in France, people in America and elsewhere, with the exception that America is actually trying to answer some of these concerns at the moment. But the cause everywhere is the same. You know, for the whole of this century so far, for a quarter of a century now, all developed nations have had totally unsustainable levels of legal and illegal migration forced upon them through the incompetence, to put it no stronger, of their political class. And now many people, decent people, not racists, not neo-Nazis, not deplorables, have been coming out and saying, you know what, we liked our country as it was, we don't want it to change unrecognizably, and we're going to be proud of it. And everywhere, the astonishing thing, again, with the exception of America, where there is a political response to this, everywhere else in the West, from Australia to the UK, the trick of the political class is, let's demonize the general public, let's call them every possible nasty name and try to anathematize them. And in each country, whether it's Britain, Australia, Europe, there is another way, which is, hey guys, how about getting control of the borders? How about making sure that our welfare states are sustainable? How about prioritizing the tax-paying populations of your country, the citizens and subjects of your country, prioritizing them over recent illegal arrivals? But in every country, apart from America, it is always prioritizing the people who've broken the laws and broken into the country and denigrating the population of the country. I'm just surprised that to date, the reaction from the general public, whether in Sydney or in Epping, has been so decent, because by now, most populations pushed like this and pushed around like this and insulted like this would have done things far more radical.
Now, switching to the US, and you've warned New Yorkers against electing Zoran Mamdani as mayor, and you make the excellent point that they only need to look at Gavin Newsom's California to see what can happen when you implement these sorts of far-left policies. Of course, Gavin Newsom was mayor of San Francisco before he fouled his way up to governor of the state. Douglas, God forbid, there's talk of him being one of the front runners as a Democrat candidate in 2028. Could he fail his way all the way up to the presidency, Gavin Newsom?
Oh, yeah, he probably could. The Democrats haven't got a very deep or talented bench at the moment. And Gavin Newsom seems to be failing up largely because a lot of people seem to think he looks the part and seems to be a nice guy of some kind, which I think is a mistake on multiple levels. Gavin Newsom has been safeguarding, looking after one of the most beautiful states in America, with some of the most beautiful parts of nature and indeed cities of anywhere in the world. And he's caused a massive exodus, and he's overseeing a city which, when it's not on fire from wildfires, is on fire from riots. And he'd be an absolutely catastrophic president. But yes, the interesting thing that New York is about to see, whether it elects the radical socialist Mamdani or not, is just how much can you break a city before it's broken for good? There are cities in America that have fallen completely through the floor. Occasionally they come back, but cities like Detroit have fallen through the floor in past generations. LA has been stress tested to an incredible extent. San Francisco, ditto. New York, people like Mamdani, the failed rapper, seem to think that they can just stress test a city like New York endlessly. You know, the interesting thing in America is that you can't, not least because one of the geniuses of the federal system is that it means it is incredibly easy for somebody who has been tested too much in New York, who's paying taxes that are too high, to live on streets where there are needles lying around and homeless and illegal migrants around the streets and dangers on the subway and much more. They can just leave and go to Florida, where they'll have a better standard of living, or they can move to Texas. It's so much easier than, say, if you're in Australia or Britain, and you've decided you're being so badly governed you want to get out. In America, it is incredibly easy to move between states. And if Mamdani gets in New York, not only will he hike the taxes, he'll, of course, as he said, he'll tax the white in particular. No racism there, of course. And I think we will see a massive exodus of talented people, and not just the 1%, but the sort of people who work hard to afford to live in the extremely expensive city of New York. You'll see an exodus of those people. And yes, it's not inevitable that a city like New York can just be endlessly tested, because there have been times in the city's history before, not least in the 1970s, where you showed that actually you keep testing New York like that and it can fall an awfully long way. And maybe next time there won't be a Giuliani figure to save it.
Now, before you go, Douglas, I read in The Hill just a couple of hours ago the startling news that Harry and Meghan could possibly return to their royal duties. Apparently, it was never Prince Harry's intention to give up his responsibilities as a senior royal. Douglas, I know this keeps you up at night, but do you think Harry and Meghan could do their so-called passion projects while serving the crown?
I love this alleged spin that it was an accident that he gave up his royal duties. You or I might forget to empty the dishwasher. Harry forgot to keep doing royal duties. Could happen to anyone, you know. I mean, it was only his main job and role in life. So no, I don't particularly buy that. I suspect they will hold out in Montecito as long as they can, until the Netflix deals dry up further and the sales of Meghan's jam don't bring in sufficient funds. And at that point, they may try to make a re-entry. But I love this thing of just sort of forgetting about it. It's like, whoops, I left the country, insulted my family, and stopped doing any royal duties, but I didn't mean to. Brilliant. Only Harry and Meghan could do that.
Absolutely. Douglas Murray, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Great pleasure as always. Thank you, Rita.